Disclaimer. The following podcast contains useful information that is potentially life-changing. Unfortunately, this information is buried amid self-indulgent and context-free humor that some will find inexplicable and annoying. You have been warned.
Varch, and welcome to Brain Software Podcast. This is episode 175, coming to you from the shores of Lake Scugog, not far from the Hypnotic world epicenter of Toronto, Canada. I'm Fritz Thompson, and today, hypnotist and police trainer Mike Mandel, otherwise known as Jeff, we're going to talk all about dealing with deception. So don't touch that dial.
And there were times, of course, when the war got to all of us. Think about it. Our families were back in Britain, and we were stuck in the mud, the trenches of France, wearing clothing that was ill-suited to the dampness, and indeed, I've never experienced worse weather.
Please get to the point.
I shall. In fact, I'd like to say that during a particularly grim weekend, with a lot of rain and little food, other than hardtack sea biscuits, we had a visit from Sir Lanyard Ballwater. He was worried that the chaps didn't have any financial advice, and he wanted the lads to have some well-thought-out investments so they'd be all right when COVID ended. I mean to say when the war ended. Johnny Latham the Otswo had brought Sir Lanyard over, and he was giving advice to the lads on what to do with their 3 shillings 6pence per week. Dennis Price Morgan was present, as I recall was Ray Houston and Guy Billingham and Johnny Bortman, if I recall rightly. Sir Lanyard was explaining the ins and outs of banking when suddenly Bryce Morgan leapt to his feet and said, "Here's how I invest. Put everything you have on Ballgasm in the 6th race." Well, whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know before the war?
These are days of victory! So welcome to the cold and damp, the captain of hypnotic trench warfare,
Hurrah!
The hypnotic stunt driver par excellence, and the custodian of the brown paper and vinegar supply, Mike Mandel.
Buddy, this is great. This is 175. Who in a month full of nuns on Sunday would ever think that this would ever have gone this way?
Well, I think we said that we were going to do at least 5,000 episodes before we ran out of material. So we're well on our way.
We're well on our way. And today is a great topic. We're talking about dealing with deception in many different forms. And some of this comes from my research, and some of it comes from being a police trainer and sitting in on a lot of police training sessions myself. And we're going to give people some really useful stuff, although we've said you may have to dig for it a bit.
All right. So stay tuned, because we're going to do all kinds of cool discussion about dealing with deception, detecting it, etc. And before we do that, though, our usual think tank words of the day.
I have drawn these, young Christopher Fritz, from the actual Savo Bukacek think tank in my office in sunny downtown Toronto, or near enough.
Sunny?
Yeah, I'm not downtown either. But the first word is patrimony.
Patrimony. Okay, tell us what it means and what do you get out of it?
Well, no, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know what it means.
The second one is perique.
Don't know what that means.
I knew that one. Patrimony, I know, but I have difficulty explaining it. A rotor, I think you can probably manage.
Yeah, rotor, I could.
Well, why don't we get a full working definition of patrimony first?
All right.
So this is property inherited from one's father or a male ancestor.
Okay, I did
so
not know that.
So you get in a will, right?
Yeah.
Have you got a will?
No, yes.
Am I in it?
No.
Oh, you bastard.
No.
How quickly you... No. He's saying no as I'm still asking. So patrimony, how does this fit into our podcast
Property
today?
inherited from one's father. We're going to find out. I don't have anything obvious.
I'm thinking we're talking about deception, so we want to be very leery of people getting our property and securing all of it.
Yes.
It's stuff we get through a will or whatever, because people will deceive. You know, we get the phone calls and they say, "Oh, hi, could you give us your credit card information and we'll say, look after you."
Yeah.
And people go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. All right.
The next word is perique.
Next one, we'll move on.
I'm not sure how this is going to fit. Perique, I haven't heard the word.
I don't even know what
years.
that means.
Perique, I'm not making this up. This is absolutely off the top of my head, Chris. Perique is a type of pipe tobacco that is only from St. James Parish in Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on the monitor right here.
The reason I know is there was a company called Inductions that would blend pipe tobacco to your design. And I had a black Cavendish one I had designed with just a touch, 10% Perique in it.
Okay.
Perique is packed into logs. It ferments. and it makes a very strong pipe tobacco, but it gives it a very distinct flavor.
Okay, so here's where I get out of that because of the topic being
don't
deception.
smoke, kids. That's what we get.
Don't smoke, kids.
Yeah.
It'll kill you. My mom told me that when I was a boy. Never smoke, Chris.
I just looked
it
at
will
myself
kill
in
you.
the monitor by accident.
Yeah, of course you did, because
Yeah.
you probably had a stroke. It's very specific. And what do we know about deception when someone's telling you a story, as we'll get into, when there's way too much detail?
Too much detail.
So that maybe that'll fit in. Let's find out.
The specificity of it.
All
yeah.
right.
But it's a great word, perique. I think Aleister Crowley used to smoke perique tobacco soaked in rum. I never
there you
tried
go.
that, but
Well, neither have I.
well, let's go
All
to
right,
rotor.
rotor,
last
the
one. This
moving part in
this
a
is
motor.
Definitely
You have
a
your
thing for a
stator
mechanical
and your
engineer.
rotor. So it's
Yeah.
the moving parts. So I guess in terms of deception, and we'll see how this all plays out and we'll move along shortly here.
Yeah.
The rotor being the moving part in a motor and the stator being the not moving part. Situations are fluid, so we have to always be...
Be Ken Sweatman.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
I just went red.
So let's
you never
see.
See
Yeah,
red.
let's
he
see where
actually
the
caught himself saying lunacy, absolute lunacy.
Things are
Now,
always
listen,
moving.
When I think of rotor, I do not think of that because I'm not a mechanical engineer.
Today's lie may not be the same as tomorrow's lie.
A lie well told is practically the truth.
Oh, there you go.
Now listen,
All right.
the rotor, when I hear rotor, I think of that damn ride at the Canadian National Exhibition, the CNE. I never went on it because it was terrifying. The rotor
Is it
worked
one of
with...
those spinning things?
Yeah, but it was the worst one. It was a vertical cylinder that spins.
Oh, yeah.
And you stick to the walls and the floors drop out.
Normally your expression is like this, and then on that thing,
The floor drops out. You're
Yeah.
stuck to the freaking wall. Why? And then people get out and throw up the potato chips and hot dogs and beer they've been drinking. Why would anybody subject themselves to that, Chris?
I think those
Now,
rides
why
are
do they
fun.
stick to the side? Side note, scientific side note.
centripetal force, buddy.
What would Einstein say?
I don't know. What
He
would
would.
he
He
have said?
said it's the motion, the acceleration creates a gravitational field. So it's
Interesting.
exactly the same. It's
All
gravity,
right.
buddy.
There
It's
you go.
Gravity.
Okay.
So forget that fear of gravity. All humans, without exception, tell lies, Chris. Let's talk about white lies.
Okay.
What white lies are you telling yourself and your children?
A white lie. Yeah, a white lie. They classically define a white lie as a lie that's not harmful to anybody. It could be a lie that's told to protect
Classically
somebody.
define it.
Well, I don't know. Is there a
Who,
classic
Aristotle?
definition?
You know, yeah.
Yeah, good question. What do you think about what is a white lie and when is it okay to use them?
Well, I'm going to deconstruct a white lie for you right now.
All
and
right.
This is going to be devastating.
Okay.
Chris, there is no Easter Bunny.
There you go.
Somehow
All
you'll
right.
find the strength to go on living.
Yeah,
Everybody
that's a good
tells
point.
white lies because if we are brutally honest with everybody, we just leave a debris field of hurt feelings everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not the best way to be.
People are sensitive.
My wife is very truth oriented, very giving people the whole truth, but she realizes finally it's not the best thing in friendships. If someone's wearing something that looks ridiculous and they say, "What do you think of this?" Although the temptation is to say,
You look ridiculous.
"That looks ridiculous." Instead, you say,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
It's the go-to.
Yeah. And it depends on the level of congruence, right? If you say, "Oh, that's interesting,"
level of friendship.
I say that because I like how, or I can appreciate how you've combined such and such, whatever. You say some specific things, right? But if you say, "Well, that's interesting," they're going to wonder what you really mean by that, and then you're going to be digging in the
diggery,
in the rootery,
rooting in the rootery as well. I
just
know.
looking
so
for.
we're saying that people do tell white lies all the time, and in our society, that is largely acceptable, provided there is no ulterior motive, which is what makes it a white lie.
Yes.
Now, a nasty lie. Real deception. This is the sort of thing that takes advantage of people to gain an advantage over them, to rob them, to be mean to them, to deceive them for some reason. And that's the stuff we're going to look at today.
All right.
Deceit itself. And we spare people's feelings, and we also lie to avoid stressful situations. It's, did you vacuum the house like I asked you? I think so.
Yeah, you pretend you can't remember.
Or you could just use our new line, way ahead of you as you're going to get the vacuum cleaner. I am way ahead of you.
Oh, man.
Some people, Chris, I've got the note here, are pathological deceivers. They're not only those who are out to get what they can, but some people can't stop lying. I want to give you an example of this. You think I'm making up. I'm making it up. I went to school with a guy, and I'm not going to say his name because he's someone I've successfully avoided for years.
Oh, okay.
And there's enough magical thinking here that I'm afraid if I say his name, someone's going to say, "Hey, they talked to you in that podcast." And then all of a sudden he's calling me. It's so bad how I tried to get away from him. When I was a telephone operator, I had an unpublished number just to avoid him finding me. He was such a jerk. hung out with him in high school. And wouldn't you know, I was on the Toronto directory one night, and he frickin' phoned and asked for my number and recognized my voice. I'm not kidding you. What are the odds, Chris?
That is so
anyway,
weird.
He was such a pathological liar. The Apollo 8 astronauts were up orbiting the Earth, and he said he had his telescope and he could see inside their space capsule. So we would actually egg him on with this. Wow, could they see you? He said, yes, there was some quirk of optics. They could see him, and they waved to him. And one of them, it was Thanksgiving, held up a sandwich and he mouthed, guess what kind? And he said he went through the telescope, turkey? And they went, yeah. Like, this guy lied about everything, Chris. If he
so
said
bizarre.
good morning, you couldn't believe him.
So what's the motivation behind something like that? Obviously, there's no financial gain or anything like that. So I can only think it's attention.
It's got to be attention, a desperate need for attention. I'm sure he had in his writing the back to self strokes at the end of words. But anyway, I didn't see the guy again, and I haven't seen him in years, and that's a very good thing. But, you know, the deceivers, pathological deceivers, people with an agenda, they are spectacular at remaining hidden for a long period of time.
If
look
they
at
have,
you
you
doing
mean
one
if
of
they,
these, smiling like, oh, I've remained hidden. Look at you. I'm looking at him going, he's smug. He's thinking, I've got all this remain hidden. Oh, there's $400,000 missing. He'll never notice. I do the income. My wife and I.
Are you just thinking that, like, so somebody who is deceiving for their actual
for
gain,
their
like not just for
gain.
attention.
No, for
so
their
if we think of
gain.
the idea of what do people need in life, they need to feel a sense of significance. That's one of the human needs.
Yeah.
So by saying I can see the astronaut's turkey sandwich incorrectly,
no, it's nuts.
Like I guess as a school child, how old was this?
Okay, so I was in high school.
Oh my goodness! So we're not even talking
16, 17.
Okay, because you know, there's imagination. There's kids who just have an imagination.
Yeah.
They probably know. I would imagine.
But a 17-year-old.
Yeah, like a 6-year-old. I get that. Okay.
Yeah.
A 17-year-old. That's
Not
just
so
freaking
much.
weird.
Well, I wonder what happened to him. I'm not going to look him up because it'll make that magical thinking
Okay.
happen. But I'll just give you an
Magic boy.
example that's so unbelievably stupid. He worked at the Red Barn restaurant when I did too. And that was flipping burgers and stuff, 15 cents a hamburger, 20 cents for a cheeseburger. But here's the thing. I said to him once, we used to test it, Bruce Gibbon and I, got to stay away from those trees. Oh, got to stay away from those hands. Bruce Gibbon.
That was
he couldn't stand this guy. They didn't like each other. But Gibbon would goad him just to get him to lie for his own amusement. And there was the Bell Labs rocket plane, the X-15.
Okay.
And so Gibbon would test him. In a coffee, he'd say to him stuff like, have you ever seen the X-15? You ever see pictures of it? So right away, this guy goes, yeah, I've seen pictures of the X-15. Then totally deadpan goes, matter of fact, I've flown the X-15. So we act like, I'm not kidding. So we act like we believe him. We say, really? Yep. How did that happen? Well, one day I was working the counter at the Red Barn. This guy came in. He was an American general in full uniform, visiting Canada. He said, you look like a nice guy. How'd you like a ride in the X-15? They took me down to Nebraska. He said they actually let me take the controls and I flew it. This guy, like, do you think he might be insane, Chris?
That's just crazy. Okay.
Because I don't think he flew it.
Obviously. So back to circling back.
Okay.
There are people who do this, let's say, for attention, because there's no money in it for him or anything like that. There's not even fame. It's just attention from his buddies.
Right. And then there's people.
And then there's people who are, you're saying, hiding in the background, sort of hiding in the hidery.
Hiding in the hidery.
Waiting.
Like Jack the frickin' hider.
Waiting to pop out.
Like Jack the
and
out-popper.
lie for their own gain.
Like Jack the frickin' liar. Lying in the liar. Yeah, Peter Collins, the forensic psychiatrist. He said to me, well-adjusted psychopaths will wait years before they spring their trap, as you know happened in my life. Not with me doing it, but to me.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's important here is the average person believes they are way better at judging and detecting deception than they are.
Okay, that's interesting. And that's actually true that most people think they're above average intelligence too, don't they?
Yeah,
the average person
most people are smarter
assigns
than
their
most
own
other
intelligence
people.
to be well above average, which of course can't be true.
Everybody thinks they're funnier than they are.
Yeah.
They could be a comedian, they could be an actor, and they're useless in all these things, the average person. People just aren't typically great at stuff that they don't have skills in.
Well.
So, stop it. Oh, you do a pretty good Arnold, and you aren't actually trained in that, though.
I might be above average at that, but there are a bunch of things that I'm not above average at. So there you go.
Maybe you should go fly the X-15 with
There
Arnold.
you go. I'm probably not above average at flying a plane because I've never done that before.
That's right.
There you go.
Now, listen, the result is people get scammed, they get manipulated, there's theft. And I said, seriously, buddy, how many emails have I gotten that someone in Nigeria wants to send me $5 million that I'm entitled to.
You're
that some minister has left in his will for me. One of the guys from our church contacted me and he said the UN had a special fund of giving $200,000 to worthy people. He had his $200,000 already, and he saw my name on the list, and I should contact them. Here's the link to click on. And that's an interesting scam. Do you know how that scam works?
No.
They get elderly people. Now, I would fall in that category if I hit the microphone.
Yeah, you did.
Elderly.
Yeah.
I would fall in the elderly category, but not the inept category because of all the martial arts skill and the 162 IQ and all these things. It sort of puts me in another world. Did I mention that? Sorry. Now, listen, this guy sends me this information. I followed up. This is how easily people get scammed. Elderly people go to this thing. You got 200,000 for me? I just have to apply here. They contact you back and they say, yes, you're entitled to this. We found you on the list. We are bringing it as a certified check made out to you.
Yes.
But it's not safe to put in the mail. You have to pay $900 on your credit card. We send 2 professional security people to deliver it to your door. So people put $900 on their credit card
because they think somebody's going to show up with
200,000.
Yeah,
morons. Your bus is leaving.
Yeah.
So there's the other one I wanted to say is people who just want to get access to your house. You notice that they come to the door, knock. They got an official looking label. We want to check your. I fell for this many years ago. Well, last week, but it was many years ago. A guy comes to the door, he's got an Enbridge thing, a jacket on, and it looks official, and he just wanted to check our hot water heater. And I was rushed, and I let him in, and then realized he was a salesperson for a company, just trying to upgrade our water heater, i.e. sell us a different one.
Yeah.
But that's deception too.
Yeah, because once you let them in, you're into that trap of Cialdini's commitment and consistency. So you've already, it's a big compliance set. Yes set / compliance set. Right.
You're bang on with that. And we have a rule in home security. You never let them in because once they're in, they're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to watch that. Now, have you also run into do you fill in surveys? Do you ever do that?
No.
I don't either. And why don't you fill in online surveys?
Just no interest.
Do you see the yes set and compliance set built in on that? We can serve you better if you fill in the survey. It's very simple at first. Are you a Canadian citizen? How many people live in your household? What's your average household income?
Yeah, once you answer simple questions, you're much more likely to divulge personal information that you wouldn't necessarily answer the first question out of the gate.
And I don't know if you've noticed this. This is so stressful for me. My hands are hovering in the air.
Oh, hovering in the hovery.
I know, my hands are hovering like Jack the frickin' hand hoverer.
All right, so let's move on though. We have so much good stuff to cover. I want to make sure we cover it.
The classic scam, or at least deception method, a lot of people do who are skilled, is the we're all in this together scam.
Oh, yeah. Now, you think you haven't heard that one in the last 12 months?
Well, yeah. And this is used to get people to comply with unusual requests. So let's say a woman is bringing in her groceries. Gavin de Becker talks about this, security expert in The Gift of Fear. A woman is bringing her groceries in, and the guy comes in the front door at the same time, and it's pouring rain out. And he goes, boy, we're really being hit by this rain, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. And, those of us in this building, it's been a real problem with the flooding, hasn't it? And they're getting a yes set happening, but it's based on this idea that you have some sort of commonality of experience.
Right.
Then the next thing, he's offering to help her carry her groceries to the apartment.
Yep.
The next thing, he's broken in, gagged her, and the rest is horrible history.
Right.
And this sort of thing happens based on this
because you create this false rapport. Oh, well, I'm in the same building as this person. We live in the same city and are experiencing the same rain.
So somehow there's a commonality.
Now he's helped me carry my groceries. Right.
And this is something Kurt Vonnegut calls the Granfallon, which is, you know about that?
Nope.
It's really interesting.
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
I will, Chris.
I'm thinking it's going to be really interesting.
Shut up. The Granfallon is a coined term, and it is people who have a meaningless, stupid relationship based on something irrelevant. Like, we're Oldsmobile drivers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we all have a club, and we all talk about Oldsmobiles, meaning that they're somehow all alike and similar because they all like freaking Oldsmobiles.
Yeah.
Or are hypnotists or whatever. And the Granfallon will draw people into believing they have commonality when they don't. Now, you'll hear this in subtle ways. A guy contacted me a number of years ago on my business phone. Deceiver. And his name was Tim.
Okay.
And he said something about, great to talk to you. I mean, haven't seen you in a long time. I said, where do I know you from, Tim? He sounded like he knew enough about me.
Okay.
He said, we met at Lulu's a number of times. Lulu's was the biggest bar in North America. Huge. And I used to do the gigs there.
And he probably knew that.
He knew that. And he said, you worked there for a while. And it sounded familiar enough. I got drawn into this. And then he'd call me from time to time. And then all of a sudden, he sends me a letter, a handwritten letter, and says he needs to borrow $40,000 right away.
Well, that's compelling.
And I went, what? Threw it out.
It's that guy I know.
Yeah,
from
that guy I know. Granfallon. We both know Lulu's. And then he phones me up and he leaves a message. Hey, buddy, I need your help with this. I got to call in a favor. I need 40 grand right away. I'm counting on you for this, buddy.
I'm counting on you.
I phoned him. I said, I don't even know who the F you are. Like, don't phone me
You
again.
actually called him
I
back?
didn't say F.
But you called him back?
I called him back.
I would just be thinking,
no, but I said,
delete.
Stop bothering me.
Yeah.
I didn't want him calling again. But that's a classic thing. That's the Granfallon. We're all in this together. We know each other from Lulu's, right?
Where does that come from, that phrase?
Kurt Vonnegut wrote
you
this.
probably said that.
He's
and
an
I just
author.
wasn't
Yes,
paying
I said it
attention.
many times now.
Yeah.
Well, twice anyway. But so we're all in this
That
together.
Is fascinating. Okay.
And another one is humans. I've here look at my notes. Humans can learn to detect lies and incongruence, but it does take practice. Remember, I demonstrated my calibration skills.
Oh, the human lie detector.
Yeah, but I demonstrated it to the man who ran Toronto Polygraph, which was a premier polygraph detection. Polygraph service is the term.
Okay.
Yeah. So he would use
tell me about it.
I met him at Ontario Police College and we got talking about polygraph and I said, I believe the human neurology and psychology are the best possible detectors of difference. Remember, a polygraph does not detect lies, it detects differences. You're looking very studious there with your.
That's actually a really good point to hammer on real quick right here for everyone.
Yeah.
So
hammer in the hammery.
The idea of calibration, whether it be in hypnosis, NLP, everyday conversation, etc., we don't have this ability to know that a lie has happened. We have the ability to calibrate for difference, right?
Right.
My wife, many years ago in our relationship, she used to say, "Oh, I just had a feeling," and she called it intuition. I said, "Oh, come on, that's a bunch of garbage. That doesn't really exist." And then of course, as my evolution in hypnosis, NLP, conversation, all that stuff happened, I realized, wait. She's just talking about calibration.
Yes.
And now I have to admit,
unconscious level.
She was right.
She was right, damn it. Calibration at an unconscious level. Intuition is not something psychic. It is drawing conscious conclusions based on unconscious processes.
Yeah.
And so when you get that gut sense, there's something weird about this guy or something's not wrong here, you should listen to it. That's your spider sense.
Did you say something's not wrong here? I think you meant something's not right here.
Did I say something's not wrong?
Yeah, you said something's not wrong.
If I did say it, guess what? We'll just edit it out.
You were wrong.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, so something's not right here, and you're activating
you say
more.
Something's not right here, and
yeah, I did. I did like this weird moment. Something's not right here, and
at least you're not saying
your brain is automatically going to dedicate more of its neural networks towards let's pay attention here, right? It's sort of like if you're looking at a picture and everything's still, and then there's a little motion somewhere, you're going to focus your attention to that motion.
Now, when you said a little somewhere motion, did you mean a little motion somewhere?
A little motion, yeah.
We're starting to doubt our own personal history.
Does that make sense, though, metaphorically?
It does, Chris.
When you see something odd, you focus all your attention there, and now you're paying even closer attention.
Yes, and calibration is important. Fairview Mall, many years ago, my wife and I were there in the food court, and a bunch of gangy-looking guys came in with food. And being an Enneagram 8, I picked up on it immediately, calibrated, and realized they'd all gone to different food stations. They didn't even know each other. My wife saw them, and I could see her. She was a deer in the headlights. She's an Enneagram 6. She started to panic and thought something was going to go down, like a robbery or something or some violence. And she was just sending all these signals of terror. I said, look at me, breathe. Nothing is happening. We're going to leave just for your peace of mind. I've calibrated this. 8s have the most accurate threat assessment of the Enneagram. I said, there is no problem. She was literally like this, Chris, like frightened to death. You've got to have accurate threat perception. If it's turned too high, then nothing stands out from the background radiation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like when you go through the airport and they have, look how we're both twisted like Jack the freaking twist.
Yeah, I'm going to turn
twisting
a
in the
little bit
twistery.
More. Yeah.
But you go to the airport, if they have the sensitivity set too high on the
everything goes off.
So they have to do a body check, a body search on everybody.
Yeah, your old mercury fillings are setting off the
your
metal
feelings
detector.
are setting it off.
Yeah,
I'm feeling very metallic.
That would be very sensitive. How sensitive is your metal detector? My feelings are setting it off.
So it's the same for humans. We have to have a good detection of threat and deception, our spider sense, but it shouldn't be set so high that everything sets it off.
You know, that really makes
nice,
that. I'm steepling
yeah.
under the table. It really makes sense to me because if you think about we talk about playing guitar and amplifiers and settings and all that stuff. Well, if you crank up that gain a bit too much, all of a sudden you get crazy feedback.
Yeah. It doesn't really work as an example, but it gave us a little bit of interesting fillers so we could pick up Stinky Winky the dog.
How you doing, buddy? Yeah.
There he is.
He usually just lies under here.
Uncle Mike loves his Uncle Mike. Notice I go to the high register because they love that.
Yeah.
Barbara Woodhouse.
Do you want to sit with us?
Let's put Stinky Winky where he can relax. Now listen,
cool.
The next one is, I wanted to say, one of the keys of deception, according to Dr. Lieberman, is little or no eye contact.
Right.
So you're talking to the person and they're doing, not making eye contact because it feels like you're seeing through them.
Yeah.
Stop making insane eye contact to make a freaking point, you lunatic. And another thing is when you enter a conversation with someone about an important topic, look for their initial reactions, micro expressions. You'll see them in the first couple of seconds.
Okay.
So if the person, that'll show you the real feelings. Person says, by the way, I've got freaking colon cancer. And you see a little smile flick on the person's face.
That's weird.
That's their actual response.
That they think it's funny? Oh, he's trying to join you.
Yeah, we can't because he's standing on the testiculary. Yeah.
Hey, buddy. There you go.
Standing in the standery. Right. Okay. Do you know what I'm saying? People will give it away with the initial flash expression. The micro expressions can last like a quarter of a second.
Okay.
But they're worth watching.
Okay, interesting. So if somebody lets it a little, like they're glad that this guy's got colon cancer or whatever.
Oh, yeah. You see it all the time.
Weird.
And a great way to calibrate lying. Remember, we use the NLP method of eye accessing cues. If you master the eye accessing cues, they won't tell you when the person's lying, but they will tell you when they've gone to the construct part of their brain instead of recall. And watching on talk shows and watching guests.
Good opportunity
it's a great
for practice,
time
right?
Because you see, my career's going great. And they said, lying. Person's on the way down. It's interesting to see. Another thing is when you think someone is being a deceiver. So you ask them a question like, you ask your teenage kid, well, where were you last night? And they give you an answer. You use the power of intentional silence. Because when you use intentional silence with someone who's telling the truth, they don't care.
They won't care and they'll just stop talking.
Right.
But someone who's lying will fill that awkward silence with more unnecessary detail.
And of course, what you do then is keep silent.
Yes.
Because it flushes it all out.
And proverbially dig their own hole.
Yes. And what Lieberman pointed out that's really cool as well is if you ask someone a question mostly on a grand concept. Okay. Let's say something like racism. Okay. You say, well, do you have any racism in your mind? Are you a racist person? Now, the person who's telling the truth will answer immediately. They'll say, no, I'm not at all. They won't have to think about it. Yeah. If there's a pause, they're trying to figure out the best possible way of answering. And even if they answer yes and then pause, they've answered yes to stop you.
Which is like they think it's a lie. They don't think they sound convincing enough, so they need to fill in more detail to convince themselves that they sound convincing.
And I saw this, Chris, one of the 2 times I was called for jury duty. Once I got out of it, the first time I didn't, and I was actually the jury foreman. And we are bound by law. We cannot say anything that happened in the jury room, but I can tell you what happened beforehand. It was a crack cocaine case. And beforehand, they were screening the jury. So the defense lawyer and the Crown Attorney guy, we were all in the courtroom with the judge, and they're calling us one at a time. And they said, number 42, and I stand up, and this is the question he asked me. The defense lawyer said, will the fact that my client is black affect your verdict in this? And I said, not in the slightest. I'm answering instantly because I'm telling the truth. Yeah. And they went, accept, just like that. Other people delayed. Oh. Said, no, we don't want that one.
Yeah, because they detect, they do this for a living, right?
Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah, right. There we go. They detect that pause. They just know.
It's problematic.
They don't know the specific person, so they're not calibrating to that particular person's behavior from experience with that person. But as a pattern, people, they're just falling into this idea that, okay, generally speaking, if someone pauses like that, maybe
if they start pausing in the pausery,
they are.
Like Jack the frickin' pauser.
We don't know why the pause is happening, but it could be that they're trying to convince.
But it's a red flag for them.
Yeah. So it's dismiss, right? We want the guy who instantly, congruently answered no. It will not affect my decision.
Now, if you're dealing with someone and you're not sure if they're being truthful or not, listen, my voice is rough today, you'll notice that they are often using self-calming gestures.
Oh.
They might touch the center line of their body. They might touch their face or their hair. They may rub their hands. And what this is doing, well, you're an NLP guy. What are they doing?
Oh, they're giving themselves kinesthetics.
For what purpose?
To comfort them, to feel confident, to feel calm.
And based on what?
Protected.
Okay, here's the answer I'm actually looking for, folks. In NLP, you cannot have...
Oh, the externally internal at the same time.
So
Thank you.
I'll give you a chance to bail yourself out.
All right, so there you go.
Extraordinary coffee.
Yeah, so the idea that you cannot feel an external kinesthetic and an internal kinesthetic at the same moment in time.
Or
you
even,
can switch
even in
back
any system,
you can
can't have
typically
internal,
switch back and forth with some switching like Jack the Switcher ability.
In the switchery, yeah.
But let's say I cannot feel anxiety or discomfort or mistrust or maybe fear, whatever it is.
Right.
If I'm focusing on
an external kinesthetic,
here.
an external.
Right. Some external sensation.
Yeah.
Right? This is like it's not really external, but it's externally by me applied.
Yeah.
It's a real physical feeling versus an emotional feeling.
And this is so powerful. Years ago when I was a therapist, one of my first clients was an NLP practitioner, got her to deal with her anxiety by her task was to keep cleaning her house and really notice the feeling of the sponges and the warm water and the brushes and that got her attention out from this pathological
and that would make
anxiety.
sense.
It did make sense, Chris.
Because if you internally are feeling these issues that are not good and you replace them with externally applied feelings that you can appreciate, warm bath, for example. If you could just lie in a warm bath and appreciate, that feels really good. That's really soothing.
Yeah. And think too, the Greek worry beads, kompoloi. That's how they work.
Yeah.
It gets the person's attention on fiddling with the stress balls.
That makes tons of sense.
Stress,
there you go, ball stress.
Yeah, all of that, a stress ball.
All right, that makes a ton of sense though, right?
Now, how are we doing time-wise? Because I know we do have a special report.
We're just over the half-hour mark, buddy. Okay. So, yeah.
We should go to do you want to go to the special report? Yeah,
let's do it. All right, let's go to the special report. So we have a special report from Meaford, Ontario, Hypno North.
Hey, how are you now? It's your old friend Brado coming at you from Hypno North and that. Today we're going to be talking about online hypnosis training, what's available if you live up here. And there isn't a hell of a lot in that. Well, that was my original idea for an update, but something happened in that. Anyway, a couple of days ago, I was driving through the town of Shallow Lake. I saw a certified hypnotist shingle on a horse barn. Well, naturally, it got my attention. I pulled into the driveway, went over and knocked on the barn door, but all it did was irritate the horses, and there was like nobody there. So I walked up to the farmhouse and pounded on the front door like a cop, maybe a little too hard. This old woman came out on the porch, chased me away with a shotgun. I yelled I wanted to see the hypnotist, and then she calmed down and said he'd be back later that day because he was out in Owen Sound buying hypnotic supplies, which sounded weird. I mean, what the bastard are hypnotic supplies? I mean, are we talking hypno spirals or intake sheets or what? Anyway, I decided to come back later, introduce myself to the hypnotist, because anyone who can work out of a horse barn's got to be pretty skilled. For one thing, it's pretty effing cold out still, because here in Grey County, spring doesn't hit till the first week of June. Then there's about 3 weeks when you still get a hole down through the ground, and then when snow starts about the 1st of July. So I was, anyway, driving up to Owen Sound. I got a big honking Tim Hortons coffee, Boston cream donut, which was awesome. I used to eat a lot of them, but got put off them for about a year on account of that Dick Eddard putting one in the microwave, which turned it into high explosives of the messy kind. Anyway, I was driving in the pickup truck. I thought I might as well go home and see about going on the Facebook or on the Google and find out more about this hypnotist who worked out of a barn, which isn't dissing him or her, because if truth be told, I work out of a frickin' garage, so nobody's judging anyone. Anyway, I figured if I checked the Google, I might be able to connect with the only other hypnotist in these parts. And since I was planning my own online academy, I might build a strategic alliance or at least meet a colleague. So I went back to my place and booted up the Windows 98 machine, connected the dial-up modem, and then I went and made a couple of sandwiches while it was loading. By the way, I'm eating a new sandwich I invented. It's a chunk of smallmouth bass on a white dinner roll with mayonnaise and peanut butter. Started making them because I was hungry one night, and peanut butter, mayonnaise, and bass meat were the only things in the icebox. Well, once the computer got all connected, I Googled hypnotist in Grey County. My name comes up right away with a picture of that horse and of a sign I used to have out front because it got really cold and I had to use it as fuel in the old potbelly stove. But get this, there was another hypnotist in Shallow Lake, and he or she was obviously the one I encountered that day, or nearly did. This person claimed to be able to fix fear of cats, inability to sleep, etc. There were a lot of spelling mistakes on the website too. The only name given was The Hypnotist. Well, it started snowing again about then. I took a nap and then got up, drank a couple of beers for lunch, and headed out to meet the hypnotist. The roads weren't plowed because of effing COVID. It was as slippery as a bastard, and the snow was still coming down and that. Well, when I pulled into the drive for the farmhouse, I could see there were some deep tracks there. I reckon the hypnotist must have a patient because there was a vehicle around the back. I wasn't going to interrupt because I hate it when I'm doing something like the Dave Lemon induction and some dick comes in and asks me about propane or free-range eggs and that. Then I realized who the patient was because the vehicle was a Rydam lawnmower and nobody used the lawnmower as a car except effing Eddard. Well, in an instant, I realized what was going on in that. Eddard had a lot of personal issues and must have found the hypnotist in Shallow Lake so nobody would find out he was going for therapy. Well, this pissed me off royally as I could have helped him and could have charged him some money for coffee and donuts. Well, the more I thought about it, the more irritated I got, so I snuck up to the door to listen. That was really quiet, which meant the hypnotist must have put Eddard in a trance already. I didn't give a bastard, though. I just barged in the horse and barn like I own the place and that. And the hypnotist was standing in front of a chestnut stallion trying to hypnotize the effing horse with a swinging watch, which was ridiculous. But what was even more ridiculous when I realized the Shallow Lake hypnotist wasn't hypnotizing Eddard. The Shallow Lake hypnotist was effing Eddard, which was even more annoying than that. So I stormed out and kicked Eddard's Rydam lawnmower a couple of times, which was really stupid because I was wearing my winter sneakers and I nearly broke my foot. There was some colorful language from me because the sickening thing was bitched. As I limped back to the pickup truck, I could hear Eddard yelling to come back and he'd give me a beer and then he'd hypnotize me for pain management. Well, you think you know somebody and you know them real well, so you know they're a dick in that. But then when they secretly go after your business, they're not just a dick, they're a dick on toast, which is way worse. Anyway, I'm not talking to Eddard now, at least until he quits being a hypnotist and that. So that's the report from Hypno North, and this is your old pal Brado signing off for now. And that.
Thanks for the update from Hypno North. It's great to hear from Brado, our old pal. And now, wonderful. Mike, I'd like you to tell the Starbucks story.
Oh, great classic one. This is a great method of detecting when someone tells you a lie. If they make an excuse, like, you know, why they didn't show up or, you know, whatever, why they didn't give you the money.
If you think it's a lie and you want to find out. If you think it's a lie,
here's how you test it. You throw them a curveball they've no way of catching and see how they deal with it. Here's how it happened with me. I had a friend we're going to call Ray because it was his name, and him and his wife were coming over for a barbecue years ago. You just yawned on camera.
Yes, I did.
Tell me to tell the story. You start yawning in the yawnery.
Well, I've heard it before.
Okay, fast.
Okay, so Ray and his wife are coming over for a barbecue.
We said,
and what happened?
We said, please arrive, 6 o'clock because we're going to be eating at 6:15. Right. We had an evening plan. And so 6:45, they finally show up. I had food on the barbecue. It was pretty well burned. And my wife said, they're here. She said, I think they had a fight or something. I said, what do you mean? She said, they're sitting in the car talking in the driveway. I said, I'm going to find out. And she said, why do you have to do this? I said, because I'm self-employed, accountable to no human being, and I have the skills. And she said, good answer, go ahead. So they came in. They're all like formal and weird. I said, Ray, you are very, very late. What happened? He said, oh, yeah. Well, we were at Yonge and Eglinton uptown, and we went into a Chapters bookstore, and we were reading magazines and drinking Starbucks coffee there, and we lost track of the time. So now I make him commit to it. I said, you were drinking Starbucks coffee? He says, yes. I said, reading magazines? He says, yes. I said, at the Starbucks inside the Chapters bookstore? And he says, yes. Now he's getting frustrated. And I said, at Yonge Street and Eglinton Avenue, uptown? He goes, yes, why? And I said, well, it's just weird, that's all. Now I'm throwing him the curveball. He said, what's weird about it? I said, I just heard on City Pulse News there's a 5-alarm fire at Yonge and Eglinton. They got the whole area cordoned off. How did you get your car through the blockade? He says, oh, yeah, well, the fire chief was sending everybody north up to Lawrence, so we came across that way. Ding, lying.
Yeah, because you made that up.
He made that part up. And so You throw them a curve, they've no way of checking and see how they deal with it. It's a wonderful, wonderful technique.
That's cool. Okay, so you could probably imagine how you can use that if you're listening to this. You can put that to use. The other one is, let's talk about when people start giving unnecessary detail as a detection mechanism.
As Ken Sweatman's story as a detection mechanism. Well, I know what you mean. You mean if you ask someone something and they're answering you.
Yeah, so it sort of ties into the pause, but it's not the pause. It's just when you ask them, well, what were you, let's talk about the unnecessary detail and the testing backwards, testing lies by.
Okay, well, we'll get to that running out of sequence. We'll do that next. But this one about the too much detail, it is tied to the intentional silence.
Right.
But when you ask someone something that's true, did you eat those last cookies out of that drawer? Whatever.
Yeah, yes, I did.
Did you take that $5 sitting there? You say, no, I didn't take it. Yeah. You told the truth. You just leave it. Yeah. You don't feel any need to explain.
If you did eat those cookies and you're denying it, $5 bill, then you're starting to say, well, the last time I was in the kitchen, I saw that there were 2 cookies, like you'd be noticing.
Yeah.
And I know that the kids were running around here, and I saw that our daughter had such and such a friend over.
Way too much information.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're telling the truth, you're comfortable. No, I didn't eat them. But if you keep going and keep going, it's because you feel like you're not being convincing.
Yes.
It's a common one.
Interesting.
Yes, it is, Chris.
Okay, so now let's talk about, and then we can probably wrap
running
this one up. This is, let's talk about running an event out of sequence.
This is a classic police interrogation method. When someone gives you a story and you don't know if it's true or not, and you want to test it, run it out of sequence, especially if you run it backwards. So you got a kid who says, the parent says, where were you last night? Oh, I was over at Dave's house. Then we went to the mall for a while and we were playing pinball there. And then we went over to the public pool, but we didn't have our bathing suits. We went back to his house and we watched him. Way too much info.
Right.
So right away, it's suspicious.
And so you have to put on that, bing, I've got to remember some of these details in order.
So you say, you went back to the mall. Yes, we did. But what happened before that? Well, I said we were at the swimming pool. No, but then you were at Dave's house. Yeah, that was after the swimming pool. Well, what did you do just before you were at the pool? I don't remember. You don't have to be harsh. I don't remember what you said. Well, before that, we're at the mall. And what happened just before that? I can't remember what I said. See, if something really happened, wasn't really crying, purely for effect. If someone really remembers something, like what you were doing before you came downstairs, what you were doing last night, because it actually happened.
But
if you're making up an excuse, as soon as you run it backwards, they'll have a tremendous difficulty trying to remember what they said. So here's the secret. If you wish to lie more brilliantly, if you have to, and I hate to teach you this, but I'm going to, rehearse your story, both directions.
Yeah, rehearse your story, or both like we were saying,
directions.
We were talking about this.
Say both directions.
Both directions,
Thank you.
Right. Both, if you know the story or if it actually happened. So if you need to, like if you're planning a surprise party or something and you need to create a cover, just actually go through the activities so that they literally happened.
Yeah.
So if you need to go out to pick up a gift, let's say.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have to answer questions and be caught in this sort of situation. Do something else instead in addition to picking up the gift. Go to the hardware store, look for those finishing nails that you needed for that project, whatever it is.
He's way too good at this. Way too good at this.
Then you can just leave out I also went to the flower store to pick up that bouquet that I brought to my neighbor's house to hide in their garage so that I can.
And you leave that out of the story.
Yeah, you just leave that out completely. Yeah. Have an actual cover story, and there's your white lie. It comes back to the beginning. That's clever.
Right? To hide the fact you bought a present or something.
There's your rotor, moving parts.
There's your perique.
Yeah,
you don't want your wife to know you're smoking.
Overly specific.
Now, interestingly, I want to give you 2 final ones that'll wrap us up. They're both quick. One that is a real indicator of deception is inappropriate anger. When you confront someone about something, and you say something like, I'm talking to you about this because I want to know what's going on.
I told you not to bring that up.
Well, no, the typical one is, well, that's what I want to know too. They're aligning with your anger. It's because they've got something to hide. And you'll run into that one. The final one I wanted to mention is barrier creation. This is a really cool one. This is another police interrogation trick. When you're doing an interview with someone across a table, it could be casual over a dinner table with a friend or family member or someone you're maybe thinking of hiring for a job, or something's happened in an organization, internal shrinkage, whatever, they have to interview people. Watch out for barrier creation. Woman puts her purse on the table between the two of you. or the guy sets his cell phone and his wallet on the table between. They are setting in their mind a psychological barrier that makes them feel safer.
Really? Okay.
And all you do is move it off the table. So it's completely open again.
The person being interviewed is setting up the barrier?
The person who's being deceptive.
Oh, the person being deceptive.
Put a barrier in between.
So if you were interviewing me and I put this there, you might
the way your iPad is now.
You might determine, oh, he's being deceptive.
That's right. You're putting it between the two of you.
Now, why would you move it? What's the purpose?
Because you're opening them up to the direct communication again.
Okay.
You don't want a barrier between you. It can even be holding a pillow.
So
like
they're more likely to be honest if you remove the barrier, or what?
No, you're putting more psychological pressure on them. You're not letting them hide behind the barrier.
So they're more likely to be exposed to their lie, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. There's one more I want to give. That's just so good.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Dr. Lieberman's, and it's a brilliant one. He's an Ericksonian hypnotist. He's also a classical psychologist. But what he says that I love, he said, when you accuse someone of something,
j'accuse.
Listen to j'accuse. This is a really interesting one because this is one I'd never heard of. When they answer, if they use contractions in their initial response, they're probably telling the truth.
Interesting.
If they don't use contractions, they're probably lying. So this is where you have let's say Bill Clinton. Mr. President, did you have sex with that woman?
I did not.
That's it. He doesn't say
it's like so it's not
emphatic.
It's not that what you mean is if they're expressing something in the negative, did not versus didn't.
Yeah, or can't or whatever. Okay. So if the person says, I didn't have sex with her.
Yeah.
That's most likely true.
But if he says,
I did not have sex with that woman,
that's like
probably lying.
Really
it's
declaring
over the top, too declarative.
Yeah.
So deceit's going on all the time, boys and girls, but you won't find it here because we hide it much too well.
Would you say I have never also versus I've never? If somebody's answering a question, oh, have you ever X, whatever X is? I mean, no, I've never X.
That would be a contraction.
I have never
That's
X.
Right.
Much more declarative
that's right.
A statement.
Which means
probably lying. I did not know that.
That's a good one, isn't it?
Well, I did not know that. I did not know that. Interestingly.
You know what's interesting about that? Yeah, because Lieberman said people who are lying.
What is that for the audio people? I was pointing at the camera.
They seldom point their finger if they're lying.
Really?
Because this is very a gesture of making a point and honest.
So when I looked at the camera and said, I did not know that, the fact that I didn't use a contraction was counteracted by the fact that I pointed at the camera. Okay.
That's right. But
so the pointing
people who are lying don't usually point when they're giving their excuses.
Okay, interesting. All right.
Well, we got to wrap this pecker up. Why don't you give us
the empowering question?
Yeah.
For podcast 175, what are the elements of deception that are new to me and that I need to know about to ensure that I can detect it when it's used on me?
Nice.
All right.
Nice. And I've got a very timely MetaFIVE for you, Chris, because this is recent.
All right.
As you know, I've just signed up for masterclass online.
Yes, I know.
I was studying
telling me.
chess with Gary Kasparov, but I'm a backgammon player now. Chess has gone by the wayside, which means I'll probably have to sell my super expensive Gary Kasparov signature set at some point online and use the money for something more worthwhile, like a big backgammon board. Anyway, also studying, Wolfgang Puck on cooking and Gordon Ramsay and all these wonderful people. Masterclass made a mistake, though, and I contacted them yesterday. I said to them, what do me, my wife, and two specific friends of mine all have in common? The answer may surprise you. They all thought you had to pay per class to join Masterclass. I said, you're advertising. This $20 sounds like it's per class. Even if you look at the preview, it'll say $20 on the bottom. Mm-hmm. Everybody thought that. And everyone who I told it is a 1 month, $20 a month payment, that spit on myself. That's Canadian dollars too.
Yeah.
So low. I said, once everybody realized that, everybody signed up. Every one of them. You really have to make your presentation clear because people are responding not to what's actually there, but to their perception.
They imagine, yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. If you're on YouTube, this has been Brain Software, episode 175, all about deception. Hope you love it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit our website, MikeMandelHypnosis.com, and make sure that you are checking out the show notes because we'll give you resources to other interesting things that you can love and appreciate and build a better life. So we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks again, and good night.
We're pointing, so we're telling the truth. Chris, I've got an ending for you.
Okay.
Again, I want you to attempt to not laugh and not smile.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Stephen Hawking. I want to talk about Fritz Thompson today. Fritz Thompson is a smart man, but like Mandel, is more intelligent than I have ever been in my life. When I wrote a brief history of time, I have no idea why I'm even doing this.
Okay.
Okay, here. We'll do it differently.
All right.
My name is not Stephen Hawking.
If you're comfortable leaving that in.
We'll leave it in.
Yeah. Okay. So we won't include the actual discussion of leaving it in because that would be weird.
We'll leave it in.
And we are done. That's it. That's the news. And that's the weekend update. You know, the Dennis Miller.
Should we not put the Stephen Hawking thing? I don't think
you should put it in.
I don't think we should either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's it? Yes.
Let's do a new ending.
We've already ended it. It's over.
It's over.